The DWordPodcast, episode 1. Now, my name is Deon. I'm a radio host. I'm an MC. I'm a car reviewer, but I'm also a person who experiences real-life situations. The goal of my podcast is simple. Talk about things that nobody wants to talk about or nobody wants to share. We all have come across people who are dealing with mental health issues from behind closed doors and don't like talking about it. But if I can share my own personal stories and somehow relate it to something that all of us are going through, maybe we can take away something from it. I always say that I don't know all the answers to everything in life, but I only can share what I have personal experience of. And that is what we're going to talk about today on the DWordPodcast, dealing with passing judgment. It's a very broad way when someone says passing judgment, but you've hung out with a few people and they look at somebody and then they give an opinion. They say it's an opinion, but actually it's passing judgment. So if you see somebody with a different way of dressing to you and you ridicule the person with your friends thinking it's clean fun, you're passing judgment, right? But you can't just pass judgment and not be accountable for it. It's like I always tell people who claim to be religious that I can be judgmental to some, and God will forbid me from being judgmental to this person because I have a whole past that allows me to do that and allows me to do this. The truth is, it doesn't work that way. If you're going to pass judgment to somebody, it's still sin. It's still wrong, whether you know the person or do not know the person. Which begins my little story today. You may know me as a radio host, but the journey of my radio career was not easy. Most people who realized that I was going to try radio, most people passed judgment. These people didn't even know anything about broadcasting. 20 years later, people still don't know anything about broadcasting. We still get that question asked, is radio a real job? You don't find somebody asking that same question to somebody with a professional outlook in a career. But that is society having not understood that everyone's job has purpose. My job, your job as well. But from the time I started radio, a lot of people passed judgment. A lot of people had their opinions that were really hard, and sometimes it could break an individual hearing it. Now, when I'm talking about myself hearing all these judgments passed on to me, I was a teenager. I was 17. Hearing people say that radio would not work for me, hearing people say you will not amount to anything, hearing people say that if failure is something that you're seeing, you're probably going to end there. You could allow it to destroy you, or you could allow it to motivate you. That's what I did, because the more people that said, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. And I was like fueling my tank. It says, okay, I'm fueling myself that I can. These people, I will show them that I can get this done. I can. Now, there's many ways you can look at how do you deal with judgment people. Personally, from my side, I didn't say anything back. I honestly kept quiet. Some people would say that's not the right way to look at it. But remember, if somebody doesn't have the mental capacity to understand that what they are doing or saying is wrong, you correcting that person only weakens your status in that conversation. Because a person who has an opinion and a person who passes judgment, that is who they are. You can't change them. So by you conversing with them and trying to convince them that, hey, this is not what I am, this is what I believe, firstly, you are letting yourself down because that person's going to think lower of you because you've given fuel to what their belief is. And that isn't the way you should direct your life. Your life is directed based on the decisions you make. And the choices you make is built on your heart, your system, your future is just directed by you. You are the director of your happiness. You are the director of where your life is going. Nobody else. And I'm grateful that the first year when I started getting my first job in radio, and I didn't look back and tell these people anything. I never told judgmental people, hey, you know what you told me back then, look at me now. I don't do that. I let life happen. And when life happens, people tend to swallow their pride and say, okay, I guess he proved us wrong. But it doesn't change who they are, because they are judgmental people all around us. And nothing you say, even though you could prove them wrong or right, doesn't change how they will look. You can't fix them, but you can learn to deal around them or with them. I honestly stay away from judgmental people. I've stayed away from them from a long time. If I know somebody's judgmental about other people, I know that they probably will be judgmental about me when I'm not there. So what I do is I avoid being in their circle. Now, some may say, hey, but you got to be nice. Being nice doesn't cut it always, because being nice can be toxic for your mental health. Imagine being nice to somebody who you know hates you. What are you doing in their presence? You need to be self-aware about where you are and what you are doing, right? Now, we can look at it two ways. One, you can abstain, or two, you can allow it to manifest. And I sometimes feel that whenever you hang out with people that are judgmental and you allow their opinions to land in your heart and you allow their opinions to cloud your judgment, you are allowing that person to win. Not the win you think. The win in their self-gratification that they think they know what they're doing or saying. Do you know how many people who ridiculed my opinion or my goals or my career, those people right now obviously don't have anything to say? Because not only did I prove them wrong in their theory, I also proved them that you can succeed through negative nonsense. You can. How did I do it? One, I stayed away from people like that. And two, I didn't give them ammunition to have conversations with me. You can have basic conversations with these people, especially if they're family members, right? But you don't have to share intimate things about your journey if they have a low view of it. Like most people didn't think radio was real. Radio was this. But then I thought about it. What do you think is real if radio isn't real? It feels real when I'm on radio. My paycheck feels real when I get paid. So what do you mean? But I can't go about debating that to somebody. I have to somehow be at peace with the fact that that is who they are, this is who I am, and I live my life according to my rules, and I stay in my lane. Which leads us to the most important part of this podcast. If you want to win over judgmental people, if you want to be somehow an overcomer, you need to understand that everybody in life is running a different race and everybody has a different lane. They coming into your life, giving you a judgment when you didn't ask for one, is a boundary issue. And that means that that person doesn't understand that if no one asked for your opinion, they are giving it to you, which means they have no boundaries and they're showing how weak their skills in communicating are. Because imagine if I go into a room with somebody and I just give someone an opinion that is irrelevant to the conversation, but I just do it. I've let myself down because people will be like, what's wrong with this guy? He just said something, but nobody asked him. You see that a lot on some social media platforms when you share something and you never ask for an opinion, but people give an opinion because it doesn't seem normal to them. Now, in their mind, if somebody is doing life differently, instead of passing judgment, they should just say, hey, that's the way they do life. It's okay. I do life differently. It's also okay. But people don't do that. They want to pass judgment when it doesn't seem normal. It's like when people say you have to be married by a certain age. Who said there's a rule to that? It's 2023. Who said there's a rule to that? You can do life according to whichever way you want to, and who cares if people judge? Now, when I started off analyzing the judgment, at first, I'm not going to lie, it did hurt. It did hurt a lot, especially if you are a teenager hearing this. The negative vibes of you won't, you can't, you're definitely going to fail. It does something to you. And the only thing that I did that helped me was I prayed to God and I said, God, Jesus, help me. I don't know how I'm going to do this. People are just being mean to me. And sometimes you break down inside your heart because you feel like you don't know what to say. And when you just pray and say, God, give me peace to be around these people. I didn't abstain originally because sometimes it's relatives, long distant relatives. And I just said, I don't know how to deal with this. And I realized peace has power. Because if you are a peaceful person in this entire situation of whatever you're facing, not only will you overcome it, but you'll find that there's light at the end of it. There's no easy way to say this, but if you want to be a peaceful person, it's a choice. And if you want to be around people that are toxic, it is also a choice that you own. So how does one now deal with judgment people? Now, I am in a career where people look at my social media, they will see something online. Because they don't have it, they will say, why not me? See, yet again, an example of being judgmental. But what they don't know is that it's a reflection of what they are not dealing with in their own life. It's like when somebody sees somebody successful, get a good job, they find it very hard to congratulate them, and they be like, ugh, that person doesn't deserve it. I do. We all have met someone like that, right? That's a person who's passing judgment. But if you look deeper within the person who says that and who acts that way is dealing with something in them that they still haven't confessed that it's real. And if they don't, well, they will live that way for the rest of their life, and they'll be grumpy and they'll be picky and they will just be judgmental. But at the point where you get to a phase where you say, I don't want to tolerate this. I want to take ownership of my feelings. I want to be at peace with this. What do I do? Number one, you need to do stock takes with the people you hang out with. If people are judgmental, well, then you basically need to make some choices. If it's with family too, you have to make choices. It does not mean because you are related to them by blood that they are family. Sometimes people who are not related to you by blood could be better than your own family members who are blood family. So watch your space where you hang out with and abstain from as many judgmental conversations as you can. Not only is it toxic for your mindset for the day or wherever it is, it doesn't sit well with your spirit. And if I had to share a gem from my past that really worked for me, and even in radio, I'm in radio broadcasting, we get a lot of people who look at you on social media and they say, oh, you this, you that. You don't know somebody. You are seeing a version of them online, but they will still pass a judgment. So what I do is I have exercised the block button. So if you say something mean, you're going to get blocked. And if you want to say something mean when you don't even know me, you definitely get blocked. I exercised a lot of that on TikTok. When I started off TikTok, people said it was such a toxic app. There's so much judgmental people there. I also believe there's lots of judgmental people on Facebook. So I abstain from putting stuff on Facebook that I know people will pass judgment on. So you got to be clever in how you curate whatever you are sharing. So Facebook, for example, I won't put something personal because I know people will have their opinion. But on TikTok, when I first started off doing TikTok, I realized that the content you deliver on TikTok will attract certain people. And some of the kids that do share these bratty behavior on TikTok, they don't believe that they are judgmental. And do you blame their parents for it? Yeah, you do, because if the kids are not behaving properly or decently in a public platform, that's built on their upbringing. You can't change that, but you can exercise the block button. So we're dealing with judgmental people in 2023. I would say exercise the block button if it's happening on social media. And if it's happening in real life, also exercise the block button. But they don't have to know that they're being blocked. You don't have to entertain their conversations. You can just be watchful of it. I always say this. If you are not doing stock takes monthly or yearly, just say, hey, is this person good for my mental health or not? And if you can be honest with yourself, then that's great. I recently did something very strange. And if any of my close friends are watching this, don't worry, you're not on this list. I look at my phone book now and again, just my contact book, right? And I see, okay, how many people have I spoken to? And how many people do I not know when last I spoke to them? And if you don't know when last you spoke to them, that person's no longer close to you. So you just move along, right? But if you come across somebody that you know that, hey, this person, if I speak to this person, I know what's going to happen. That is time when you start making those adjustments. Look at your phone book and see how many people in your circle that you know that the entire conversation starter is built on judging other people. Stay away, because you could be the content of their next episode of their own content. We can carry on talking about judgmental people, but I'm going to leave you with this, right? you have a choice to tolerate judgmental people. And you have a choice to allow them to say what they want to say to you, or you can abstain and protect your peace. Protect your peace at all cost. It is hard, but if I could do it, you can too. And it doesn't take a lot to do it. Just be observant of things around you. You're responsible for how your life turns out. So start taking charge of it by simply being aware of the small things that are happening in your world. So this is the D Word Podcast, episode 1. And at the end of every podcast, I'm going to be answering some of your questions and doing this very differently, because if you did not check out the intro of my podcast, I did mention that I'm going to be trying to do things a little differently, where I'm going to be giving you a chance to ask me a question, and we'll take it from there. But before I answer this question today, you can ask me the question on my social media or on any of my YouTube videos, and I will answer them. I wouldn't have to mention your name if you don't want me to, but if you want me to, you can also do so. So I am a radio host. I'm not a DJ. People always assume I'm a DJ because that's what I'm known for, because I've done a show for so many years that is mixed orientated. So I'm not really a DJ, but I do mix music. So I'm a DJ from that perspective, but I don't really love the night scene. I'm not a person who goes to clubs. I never really did it for a long time. I actually don't like the club life. So I have better things to do than sit in a nightclub, I'm trying to say, when I was younger. So I'm saying this up front because it builds context with the question I'm about to ask and share and answer. Is number 1, I'm a radio host. Number 2, I'm a car reviewer. I'm an MC. And I am a DJ. So radio has been part of my DNA for a long time. I started my first radio show when I was 15 at DYR. And I didn't know that was going to be my career. I always assumed that people thought that I would one day be somebody in the science field, because if you come from the community I'm in, you are trained that if you don't have a degree and if you don't have this, you don't have that, you are not going to be anything. And I stopped studying, so I don't have a degree, but I'm successful in what I do because I believe that God showed me where I needed to be, not where people or society deems it. You can be successful without having the prerequisites that people have. And you can be successful in whatever you do as long as you are able to understand and enjoy what you do, which comes to the question. So somebody asked me this question, and this is the first question of the D-Word Podcast. Do I enjoy and love what I do? The answer is yes. I love what I do. I love what I do where I can't wait to go to work. Very few people can say that. I can't wait to be to work. And I will stick around because I love the presence of being on radio. So do I love my job? I love radio, yes. And why I love radio is the second part of the question, is because I get to chat to a whole lot of minds and I get to impart and influence their feelings. And not many of us can actually say we can do that influence. And I feel like you reach thousands of people every single day on the radio. And if you can influence one soul, just one, into maybe making them feel good just by playing their song or just by saying something, I believe that you're living out to your purpose. And I believe that if I was in any other profession, whether I was whatever, I don't want to pick on something particular, I don't think I would have had that same influence because that wasn't where I was intended to be. I was intended to be on radio. Imagine if I wasn't on radio, I wouldn't even be doing this podcast right now, because radio talks about podcasts all the time. It's a subsection of radio. So I'm grateful that God steered me in the right path to go into broadcasting. It is a full-time career. It's an enjoyable career. It is a rewarding career. But also being in the public eye has its negative sides, and you can be judged on. So if you have a strong skin and you know how to handle it and to compartmentalize people's opinions and yours, you'll be fine. And yep, that's your question answered. So this has been the D-Word Podcast, episode 1. Don't forget, brand new episodes come out every Monday. If you are checking out my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, you can also watch it on YouTube. And a better way to consume my podcast is via my website, because every single week when the new episode comes out, I put out a mini vlog which gives you a little synopsis of the podcast. It also gives you the video version and the audio version. So you can listen to both via my website, and you can also leave a comment there as well. I'd like both communities to be part of one place, which is the website. So make sure you check that out. And I hope you did enjoy today's conversation. Until next time, this is Deon. Take care.